back our sessions with a presentation on cybersecurity for service providers. It will be done by Jorge Ballesteros, Regional Sales Manager, WatchGuard Technology, Inc. But Jorge is also our MVP. He was the one who said, let's do my presentation after lunch and feed the people. A special round of applause for Jorge.
So much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Good appetit. I'm Jorge from Mexico. In Mexico, we say next. This is very important, and let me show you the five very important points, okay? The first is WatchGuard is pioneer for the first security appliance. When another vendors talk about for the reputation and enabled defense and next generation firewall, WatchGuard in 2011, we have this solution. Next, WatchGuard by a Panda security company from Spain, and for this reason, now we have a solution in endpoint. Special in this year, when the solution XDR and MDR, we have the control in the cloud. In a few minutes, I have the presentation for check the technical points. So this is the history for the WatchGuard, and repeat, important for us, the first security appliance, and now introduce the rest of the service in the cloud. So we have many customers, right? We have customers in many solutions, in retail, in government, in the school, but I think so all customer, of course, is very important, but always in WatchGuard is the market, repeat, in small customers, okay? Important too, the reconocida for WatchGuard. But for us, it's important the technical points. If you check the result, for example, for this company, Mercom, we have the first play, repeat, in these technical points. So, this is for WatchGuard are 4 servers. The first is network security appliance. The second is a secure Wi-Fi access point. The third is multi-factor authentication. And the last is endpoint security. With these 4 servers, we pretend, repeat, deliver the solution with the tracing and with XDR. And you have the administration and, of course, the vision in this unified security platform. So, important now with the people connect in any Wi-Fi, we have, for this reason, in one license, passport. The first is multi-factor authentication. The second is connect VPN and endpoint security, and then you say what's go. What happened with all this service? Because when the malware and phishing and the rest of the problems, we have all these solutions repeat in one license. For this reason, we have many tests and customers repeat in all worldwide for check the solution. So, the tracking is for deliver the response, visibility, and have the machine learning for all data. Repeat, when the person or when the people connect in any Wi-Fi, now it's important integrate in this platform and deliver extent and detection for the response, okay? When WatchGuard buy this company, Panda Security, when APDR solution, and now with MDR, we have all the solution in one point. So this is very important because for the multi-tenant, for the service provider, you can connect for the customer and resellers and many customers, okay, before to the connect and ability you create limited only my tenants. This is very important. For the reason is we had a technical training for Caribbean and the rest of the LATAM, because with all this service, we had a new process for delivery the security. So now, with this program, the customer need pay all this service month for month, okay? This is an example when you connect the device and you can see in the WatchGuard side exactly what is the name of the customer, what is the serial number for the device, and what is exactly for month the customer need for different license or standard support for clear VPN, for example, or for release SD-WAN. Next, the basic security and total security. For us, WatchGuard in UTM, the basic security, for example, is antivirus, web blocker, DLP, and total security is, of course, integrate all these services built in one appliance. This is the new service, this is a new method for delivery, repeat, all the service. For the time, we can check all the provider with solution boxes, my distributor, and of course we can deliver it with my partners for delivery all this service for the customers. Okay, in WatchGuard we support now for many customers, million customers for the region and total. Okay, thank you so much to CANTO. Thanks so much for the time. Okay, and this is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jorge, Regional Sales Manager, WatchGuard Technology. Thank you so much. And as we proceed with our afternoon agenda, we now welcome Shubh Singh, CEO, Newfields Technologies, and he's going to be talking to us about the opportunity for telecom to lead technology transformation and monetize it. We want to hear this. A big round of applause for Shubh Singh.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining me today. I'm going to make a quick presentation. Let me just make sure the clicker's working. Is the presentation up? Okay, yeah, there it is. I'm going to make a quick presentation during which I'd like to share insights from our extensive experience working in a large number of business domains across the Caribbean. And I'm hoping that this will spur some thought, give you guys some ideas, and also hopefully provide some inspiration on how telecom can truly take a leadership role in bringing about digital transformation throughout the Caribbean, and not just play that leadership role, but also monetize it, which is extremely important for making it sustainable. So let's dive right in. So if we speak broadly, broad strokes, We can look at information technology as consisting of infrastructure and application software. Infrastructure consists of network, security, servers, storage, the system software which is running all this, all the stuff which is essential for making the internet happen. While application software are all the applications we interact with, the web browsers, social media, communication, e-commerce, trading, wallet, health apps, monitoring. You get the idea, right? Now, infrastructure is foundational. If you don't have that, you can't have anything, right? It really creates the internet and it creates the foundation for providing all the application software. But once you have the infrastructure, all of us spend most, if not all of our time with application software, right? We're browsing the internet, we're on social media, we're interacting with people, doing productivity. Now, what's interesting is that telecoms spend all of their time providing the foundational informational services. Well, I should say most of the time. Whereas big tech, right, is working, and a large number of companies across the world are working in the domain of application software. And what's happening is, with all these apps that we see, we refer to a lot of them as OTT apps, and there's a vast range of productivity applications. So while we're facing, unfortunately, a decreasing revenue in telecoms, because there is a constant pressure to continuously bring down the cost of these services, the foundational services, and people a lot of times just assume they're there. Application software is where people are spending all of their time, and there is a continuous, ever-increasing scope, ever-increasing revenue for big technology. Now, let's analyze this. So has big tech implemented all the business domains? And when we look at this, let's take the Caribbean context, right? So the big tech companies, Mang, if you look at their applications, most of them fall under the domain of social media, entertainment, and communication. Now, what does that do? That leaves a large number of additional business domains which are a lot more complex, open. And I've organized these from left to right in what I have found and our team has found in terms of decreasing amount of digitization, which equals increasing opportunity. Now think about it. If you want to enter a new business domain, where would you like to enter? Somewhere which is crowded and there's a lot of competition, or somewhere where there's less competition? So if you look at these business domains, we have microfinancial services, and we're seeing telecoms are starting to do some work over there. There's enterprise financial services, which is the more complicated, larger banking and financial services applications. There's e-commerce, online retail, traditional retail, small businesses, government services, even things such as collecting revenue from multiple agents, from multiple stores, for government to collect its revenue across multiple agents across the country. And then coming to digital health. And digital health is green because we've seen the least amount of digitization in that area in our experience. While in the private sector, hospitals have billing software, scheduling software appointments, they are not doing in the Caribbean an electronic health record. Similarly, in the public sector as well, which actually has a much bigger, larger context in the Caribbean, because a lot of healthcare is driven by public sector. They're serving a vast amount of patients, a vast amount of customers for them. And while they also have application scheduling and they have basic services for appointments and so on, they don't have, most of the time they're running off of paper when it comes to actual electronic health records or even management of the pharmacy, inventory, and so on. So let's explore these domains a bit. I've put together some high-level architecture diagrams for you. I thought we'll have some fun with this. So microfinancial services. So what's required for providing microfinancial services? If you look at the top, you have a security layer. It's very essential. You authenticate and authorize every user. You do identity management. You manage the services which are being provided. Then the clients have to undergo KYC, AML. You do transaction monitoring. You provide alerts in case something goes wrong. Then you have client management. Right? So we've implemented projects where we actually have true digital onboarding, where a client's account is created completely online. You have to have a CRM platform for managing clients. And then the actual services. Examples are remittances, gift cards, coupons, top-ups, bill payments. Having a wallet, you require external integration with external wallets, with Visa, with MasterCard. Then, of course, we require analytics and reporting, visual reporting. We require integration with financial accounting systems. We have other external system integration, right? So makes sense? So this is kind of an architecture diagram on how we are providing consumer, and of course, there's a consumer services app because it has to go direct to consumer. So consumers can access all these services easily. Let's look at enterprise financial services. Once again, we have the security layer, we have a client verification layer, we have a client management layer, very similar to the previous business domain. And then we have enterprise financial services. Now, here I'm talking about more complex services, right? Equity, fixed income, cambio, loans, margins, and so on. So these are services which financial advisors and financial firms provide you. And then again, you have the back-end systems. Let's look at the next one. Let's talk about e-commerce and traditional retail. While e-commerce is huge globally, especially in the American market, the Asian market, e-commerce is still really upcoming in the Caribbean. We don't go online and buy a lot of stuff, and it's not being delivered quickly to us. In fact, a lot of the online transactions are being made on Amazon, and they're delivered via various drop shipping mechanisms, right? Again, so we have the same layers. You start to see some common stuff here. We have the same security layer. We have a same client verification layer, client management layer. We have similar backend systems. You always need analytics. We need financial accounting integration. We need payments integration. And then we have the e-commerce services, sales, shopping, delivery and logistics, running campaigns, rewards, refunds, inventory, suppliers, vendors, social integration, notifications to keep customers engaged, providing customer support. So once again, you see we have all those common services, but the business services in the middle are changing. And then, of course, we have the apps. We have an e-commerce app, right, where customers can actually go and purchase various goods and digital services online. But then you also have mobile point of sales. Because this architecture, it doesn't just cover, the opportunity is not there for just for e-commerce, but it's also for organizing the way a lot of small businesses work, for providing them those services where they can manage their sales, they can manage their accounting, they can manage their taxes, they can manage all of their reporting and other services. Let's keep going. Let's look at digital health. So once again, you'll start to see these diagrams start to become very similar. So if I backtrack a bit, right, you can see that there's a lot of similarity in them. Once again, we require the essential security layer. We require that client verification layer. We need client management, because even in hospitals, you need to digitally onboard people. You still need to provide them customer service. You have a CRM platform, which is healthcare oriented. And then you've got all the essential services, scheduling, visits, outpatient, inpatient, prescriptions, pharmacy, inventory, medical practices, labs, radiology, and then, of course, billing, insurance integration. And, of course, you need those apps. You need the patient app so that patients can have their health record in their hands, but you also need a provider app. The provider app is for the healthcare staff and the doctors and workers. Now, if we look at all of these, and you've noticed those common layers, right? What if we were to bring all of this together? Right, so now if you look at this, we have the same common security layer because we need it in all of them. We need the same client verification layer in all of them. We need to do client management across all of them. But then we start to plug and play. We start to plug in the business platforms. We have a consumer fintech services platform. We have an enterprise financial services platform. We have an e-commerce and retail platform, an operations management platform, and then you have an HIS platform. And all of them share these common services. And you have common back-end systems. You have the integration with external third parties where you need to do verification and checks on customers. You have the external payments and wallets. You have the visual reporting. You have the financial accounting systems, right? And then at the top, you have this suite of services, of these apps. So you have the consumer services app, your fintech app, your enterprise fintech app, e-commerce, mobile point of sale, patient app, provider app, right? And possibly a customer has a common ID across all of them, a common digital ID which starts getting used in all these apps. Or maybe all of these can be one super app, as we've talked about with some of you, right? And now what starts to happen if you do that? So if telecom invests and undertakes this path, what can happen is that you can grow from being an infrastructure hub and a communications hub to being a true digital services hub. And this really is a win-win situation if you look at it. Because what starts to happen when you provide all of these at scale? Because the telecom companies have that scale. We have the customer base. So what starts to happen is that these services can be provided on a per use or a per user basis, a per business basis, to thousands of businesses, to millions of customers, and it's provided at a very low charge to them because it's at scale. At the same time, all of that adds up so that it's monetized heavily for the telecom sector. And that's what big tech is doing. They're providing low-cost services at large scale, and that's how we start to enter that domain. One other thing it does, if you notice, I added that purple bar below the left. I was going across all these platforms. Once you start putting all of this together, that's when you start getting unprecedented access to data, unprecedented analytics across all of this, and the ability to create the AI. So we have the AI algorithms, we have the technology, all that is improving. What's required to apply that technology is the data. The data is what is missing, and if we start to get it across all these domains, you can start to do something really special with it. That's when you start reaching the level of innovation, which is not just not present in the Caribbean, but you can start to lead the world in that area. And that is the opportunity we have over here. And of course, this monetization is really important because that's what will drive its growth. We need to grow and implement this, which requires funds, and that's why that monetization is integral to this, and that's what will keep it sustainable. Because you want platforms, you want systems, you want a digital services hub that's here to stay and it's not going anywhere. Okay, so that brings me to the end of my presentation. I hope all of you, found it interesting. We are doing projects actively in all these business domains. So the insights we shared, the architecture we shared are from our actual experience. I'd love to talk more. You can easily find me online or I'm here. Feel free to reach out and let's talk more about all this. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shubh Singh, CEO, Newfields Technologies. Very exciting developments. I'm speaking to Camille of Newfields too, and it's amazing the things that are being done in healthcare through the technology. Trinidad is a great example. So congratulations, Newfields, and thank you, Shubh. So our next presentation is, and this afternoon is a really great afternoon, so please let everyone come down because we're going to now have a presentation, Leadership and Management in Digital Transformation, which is going to be followed by a very exciting panel, Women in ICT, Expanding the Narrative. So please get everyone in the room, but right now we are going to welcome Dr. Maurice Hall, and he's the provost of Bennington College. He is from a nice little island in the Caribbean called Jamaica with a background in media and communication, and he does a lot of training in leadership, public speaking. Dr. Hall, welcome. And he's also going to be joined by, and this is not a mistake, General Dr. Anthony Shepard. He is a seasoned telecoms professional, but he's also a general in the Arkansas Army. So welcome Dr. Maurice Hall and General Dr. Anthony Shepard.
Good afternoon. Oh, that sounds like a lunch. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm going to tell you 3 stories. And the first of them is one that you probably heard before. If you've been watching the internet, and I hope I'm going to do this correctly, in terms of pressing, here it is. You've seen this image of a woman sitting on her roof in the middle of a storm while the storm is raging. And it is notable because a little girl's voice can be heard on the tape telling her mom, come look, because this woman is sitting on the roof. I want to emphasize the storm is raging while she is sitting holding the roof in the middle of the Hurricane Beryl that just happened. Why do I begin by telling you this story? I want to talk to you a little bit about leadership. Leadership is not what you have heard. And if I do my job well today, I may make you quizzical a little bit, probably I'll irritate you a little bit, and also say some things to you that make you go, Because leadership is for people like this. Technological transformation happens in cultural contexts. And they happen in cultural contexts where the people that we have to reach are people who don't always respond in logical ways to how we make sense. So I want to suggest to you that leadership is three things. It's cultural, it's compelling, and it's caring. It's cultural. I'm sure you've heard a lot about cultural competency. I'd like to suggest to you that leadership is about cultural fluency, meaning that in the islands of the Caribbean, where in any one island, we have several cultures that occupy, and subcultures that occupy each island at the same time, sometimes several different languages and histories. And in leadership, you have to be able to reach across to all of these cultures. You have to have fluency to move between the cultures, which is a different thing than competence. And that culture of fluency means that you have to reach people and help people understand the world from the perspective of where they live, from what makes sense to them, not what makes sense to us. We just went through a pandemic where people died because a simple vaccine that was there that could help them, they said, I'm not taking it. Why were they not taking it? Sense-making isn't always logical. Doesn't always make sense. And one of the things we know from leadership is that as a leader, you have to grapple with that. The second thing you have to grapple with as leadership, you have to be a really good storyteller. Leadership, we have learned, is about storytelling. In the national culture right now, we are having a debate about what makes for effective leadership, and whether effective leadership is somebody who is a good performer versus somebody who is a good substance person. It's both. You have to be a good storyteller because in order for you to shape what happens with people, you have to be able to tell them a story that they believe. And Carl Weick, a management analyst, says that sense-making is about plausibility, not necessarily accuracy, meaning people will take a good story and run with it even if it is not factually true. And we've seen that. Not suggesting you lie to people. I am suggesting that effective storytelling in terms of leadership is telling people something that makes sense to them, not something that makes sense to you. 3, it is caring. We understand, and the theme of this conference is sustainability, that a big part of sustainability, a big part of organizations connecting with others is through conveying a sense of good citizenship. The organization as a good corporate citizen. Leadership is a mixture of these things. It's cultural, it's compelling, it's caring. And it's different than everything we've heard growing up about leadership. The strongman theories of leadership. Notice I didn't use these words. I didn't use the word competence. I didn't use the word decision-making. I didn't use the word technical. I didn't use the word management. I didn't use any of these words because we understand today that leadership is much more about a process and it's much more about relational elements than it is just about what it is that moves projects forward. And so that's the first piece. Leadership is different than what we think it is. Story number 2. The hawk girl. So if you have been paying attention, and if you don't know what I mean, ask your children or your grandchildren. The hawk girl has achieved internet stardom. I'm not going to tell you why, Google it. She was on a beach or on a boardwalk, and a podcaster asked her a question that was cheeky, and she gave a very sexually suggestive answer. And this 21-year-old woman is now a superstar. She has TV deals. She has a potential book deal, and who knows if you won't see her in a film or a reality series somewhere. All because she had a moment that went viral for nothingness. Colleagues, this is the world in which we live. You can become viral because you're in the right place at the right time and say absolutely nothing of substance. Why am I telling you this? Because when we talk about digital transformation, as somebody who is trained in the humanities, as somebody who's a professor, my question is, transformation to what end? What is it that we are transforming ourselves digitally to do, to accomplish? So we live in an age of information sludge. I have 3 teenage children. And they can fill my head with things that make my hair stand on end. The music they listen to, the things they watch, the things they see. I watch it. If you're parents, you know. If you have children in your lives, you know. It makes your hair stand on end. The fact that you have a lot of information does not mean that the information is distinguished or distinguishable. And there's the difference between that and also the issue that you are very well aware of, the digital divide, right? The difference between societies like the United States that have the money, the infrastructure, to take advantage of what the digital opportunities will do for them, and our islands in the Caribbean. I spent some time in preparation for this presentation reading some of the reports about the penetration of technology in the Caribbean. And it's interesting, it's mixed in one sense. Lots of opportunities, but lots of challenges. You know it much better than I do, okay? And so with that tension in mind, lots of information but undiscernible, as opposed to the access to information, to what end? And I would suggest, and it's my second question, as an educator, it's important that education drives the technology and information train. Lots of information. How will it be shaped? As an educator, I'm spending a lot of my time reinventing what education looks like. I am working hard to help you get the best kinds of students who will work for you. So I'm rethinking what it means to do courses. I am making the argument that an education does not necessarily just equate to a 4-year degree. There are other ways of being educated. I had a grandmother who never went to college a day in her life, never went to high school, one of the smartest women I know. But that change in education means that we also have to understand that education becomes an important force in shaping what the digital economy looks like. And for me, I have one piece of advice for you. If ever I could give you advice, and I don't presume to because I'm not trained in your fields. But if ever I could give you one piece of advice, it is this. Hire humanists. Yes, hire people with technology degrees, but hire people who've read Shakespeare, who've read Molière, who understands why in the Caribbean, The Dragon Can't Dance is one of the most important novels to come out of the Caribbean in the 21st century. Hire humanists who, going back to The Woman on the Roof, understand what it is to change technology within a cultural context, within the context of people who understand and make sense of life in really particular ways that may not be logical, but that make sense to them. And people who understand the importance of what it means to deal with the complexity of cultural and technological transformation. That what shapes how technology goes has to be people who understand that technology occurs within a context and not a vacuum. Story number 3, Woman on the Roof Revisited. What if she were not real? What if it was just a trick of AI? You don't need to answer that question. I don't need to know the answer to the question. You don't know the answer to the question either, and even if you did, I don't want to know. The point is, it's not an unreasonable question to ask. In this day and age, we can't be sure what is real and what is not. And the fact that when I asked the question, you did not laugh and say, that's ridiculous, means that it's an issue. And I do that by way of introducing the bigger issue that we have to deal with in terms of technological transformation. And for me as an educator, what's incredibly important? Artificial intelligence. As an administrator in a liberal arts college, I am working hard to figure out how to get our students prepared to deal with artificial intelligence, AI, and what it means. It has lots of issues that we have to grapple with. Number one, the ethics behind AI. A technology that powerful can be telling or it can be terrifying. It can be telling in that it can be revelatory. It can help us understand meaningful things. I have a subscription to ChatGPT, for example. I go on there, it can help me do things with lightning speed. I can have papers written. It can analyze complex documents. It can write things for me. It is terrifying how quickly it can do that. And that kind of power can also be problematic, as you know much better than I do, in the wrong hands. So I am training my students to recognize the power and the ethics associated with AI. What does that mean, though, for our students in the Caribbean? So I'm an educator in the United States. I started my education career in Jamaica. I talked earlier about the digital divide. For those of us who work and live in populations in the Caribbean, what does that mean? What does technological transformation and what does the power of AI look like in Caribbean islands? What does it look like when in the United States we have lots of ethical questions about how the creation of this technology represents people from different racialized backgrounds? What does that look like in countries that are not even part of the representation in the United States? How do we then, is the question that I will ask and leave with you, how do we shape this digital revolution for the people of the Caribbean? What does it mean to do that? What does that look like? And again, I want to come back to where I started. That idea that technology and technological transformation exists within cultural contexts, and having people who understand those cultural contexts are key. I'm trying to do my part in educating them. I beg you that those people that you hire to work with you, those people that you shape to be the leaders of the future, those people that will be standing in CANTO in 20, 30 years, will be people who are not just technocrats, but will be people who will wrestle with these important questions, take them into account, and understand that the people you have to reach in dealing with technological transformation are not the very well-dressed, well-educated people in this room only, but that woman on the roof who believes that the only way to secure her possessions in the middle of a storm, rightly or wrongly, is to literally sit on the roof with them. And whether you agree with her or not, whether you understand it or not, that is the context in which we have to operate. She's a metaphor in some ways, literally a representation of ordinary people in the eye of the storm in terms of everything that is coming at them. And so the question is, how do we create the kind of leadership that helps her understand the kinds of technology that will not let her put herself in danger? How do we help her metaphorically get down from the roof? Or better yet, how do we stop her from going up on top of the roof in the first place? Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for your time.
Very well done. Good job. How do you follow that? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My esteemed Caribbean leaders. My name is Tony Shepard, and I'm from Guyana. I must state this before I begin going into my speech today, that I am an active U.S. Army general. I do not want any of the remarks that I give today to reflect the organization that I run, represent, and love so dearly. So no arbitration, please. A sustainable digital economy. I'm so pleased that I've been invited to speak on leadership and management. Dr. Del Rio Newman, the vice chair, asked me about this about 4 months ago, and I graciously accepted. So I would like to say to the organization and the Secretary General, Mrs. Teresa Watkins,
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. As you heard Dr. Hall mention, there are different ways that you can think about leadership. There are different ways that you can think about management. And you can Google any of those things. I will give you my perspective. Leadership is about vision, and management is about focus. Management of things and leadership providing the vision of things. So I'm going to speak to you today about three things. What? So what? Now what? And I'll try to stitch those things according to sustainability for a digital economy that CANTO has raised. You see, if you want to have the same results, you will keep doing the same thing. You can't see what you can't be. And that's one of the things that is really handicapped the Caribbean basin in terms of technology. We have many, many smart people, many, many bright people, many leaders that can articulate the thoughts with the folks from the developing world. From the developed world. We as a developing society must realize that we are part of the fourth industrial revolution. Are we going to be participants, or are we going to be a part of it and use leadership as a driving force to make a difference? What are the other three revolutions that we had before? Steam, water, followed by the electricity and mass production during the 1870s all the way through the first of the 20th century, followed by the 1960s and the electronic age, followed by what is now present, the 2000s, the IT world of internet, cyberspace, and e-commerce. I've chosen e-commerce to be the last thing that I speak about because leadership is necessary for the Caribbean basin to develop an e-commerce platform. It is necessary, it's vital. The developed world has got it in Alibaba, Amazon, Temu. Why doesn't the Caribbean basin have one of those? Leadership is necessary to move from here to there. So what is needed? A collective collaboration of CANTO members, the people who have this space, can do something about this. What would that look like? Retail space, grocery space, and the exchange of ideas. I walked into the exhibition hall earlier today, and one of the vendors, to my surprise, is eMarket. So the spark is there. The spark is there. I met with Gabrielle and Allison, who will later introduce me to their CEO. I'm looking forward to that. But that beginning has to pivot into where CANTO members and telecom companies of this time participate in commerce. We have to be able to trade between our countries to get this for ourselves. A man in Barbados ordering a coconut from Jamaica, his traffic goes all the way up to Miami. And probably the coconut might come from Miami. Are we incapable of doing that within our own Caribbean basin? No. But we need leadership to set the vision to get it there. The management of things, the speaker before us so eloquently spoke about the platforms. That's what you've got to do. So what? So what that we don't have it? Do we need it? That's a compelling question that we have to ask. Do we need it? My answer is yes, we do. Because this could be the next generating revenue platform, that stream that you have in your companies. After all, the telecoms in the Caribbean are not in existence just to say they're companies. They're there to generate money. They're there to generate jobs. And that is what this can do, an e-commerce platform. So now what? I'm hoping that I could ignite that type of energy, that type of spark that will allow you to say, you know what? We need to partner up, collaborate with the folks like eMarket and help them get to the next level. Leadership is about connecting, collaborating, coordinating, and making sure that at the end of it, results happen. Military people love to speak about strategy. Non-military people like to associate the game chess with strategy. I will tell you, there's a huge difference. If we were playing chess as a military superpower, we probably will not be a superpower. And indulge me in this. Chess, both participants have the same pieces. Have you seen the size of the United States Armed Forces? We don't play with the same pieces. We're lethal. That's what leadership is about, making sure that the guy on the other side does not have the same pieces. Because if you have the same pieces, you can play and you may win. We're going to make sure that we always win. You can rest assured that a man like me in uniform will make sure that I carry on that type of leadership, that kind of vision, and that type of management. My telecom background stems from ATN. ATNI that runs Guyana, that runs the US Virgin Islands, and they set me out on a trek in 2010 to see what you can build, do what it is that you see what you can, do what you cannot do, or see what you cannot see. In that context, I went out to the Virgin Islands. We did not have an internet platform. We did not have a cellular platform. And we set about building. It was the vision of the then CEO to make sure that we provide competitive wireless and internet service. So that's where I made my bones. I've enjoyed my time there. And Del Rio, I hope you can give my kind regards to the CEO, current CEO, Brad, if he's here, I don't know. I know my time here is abbreviated, so I'll close with this. I hope that I was able to give you a little bit about what my perspective is in leadership and in management, and what we can do as a Caribbean society in joining the developed world, in being a participant of the new fourth revolution. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, General Dr. Anthony Shepard.
All right.
What, so what, and know what. What an exciting set of presentations. Dr. Maurice Hall, he said we need to hire humanists, and they should read a little Shakespeare. Can they also like Bridgerton? Okay, just checking. Sorrows, prayers. Exciting presentations. What a great afternoon. Another round of applause for our Leadership and Management in Digital Transformation panel. So right now, following that exciting panel is an even more exciting panel. Expanding the narrative, women in tech. And please help me welcome to the stage Carol Robertson, Senior Business Development Partner and Caribbean Regional Government Lead, CNW Business Regional. She's also the newly minted chair of CANTO, Women in ICT. She's joined, beside her is Ruchi Kaushal, General Counsel, Cable and Wireless Communications, and Executive Sponsor, Women Employee Resource Group at Liberty Latin America. And she sits on the LLA's Diversity Advisory Council. Welcome, Ruchi. And Mary, maybe, General Counsel, ATN International. A round of applause for our women in ICT. And as a woman in ICT too, I get to join them. So ladies, we are expanding the narrative, women in ICT. And I must say, when I look out, I see Alisa Agard, I see Pat Walters, who these ladies were some of my first introduction to women in ICT. And I'd just like to acknowledge them and give them a round of applause for setting the stage for many of us. So ladies, can we start? And we'll start with Mary Maybe. And Mary is, I'm spelling maybe wrong now, Mary.
That's what
because
I said.
You set a stage.
As soon as you get to know me, Michelle, you're going to spell the word wrong. I married into my name and a lifetime of puns, but I embrace it because it's part of who I am now.
Wonderful. Can you share a little bit of your personal journey into ICT? Because your background is law.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. And I wanted to say, and I apologize, I looked much better in the picture that was put up on me. I presented a lot better than I do on stage right now. But I've had a career in ICT for many years, many more than I probably care to admit on stage in front of an audience. And my first career really started in law. After graduating from law school, I joined a law firm in Boston and was immediately put on a litigation track. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. I ended up working on a communications business M&A deal as kind of a side thing that I was doing during the summer. And I really liked working together to build something. I wasn't at all interested in doing research and getting up in court and explaining myself. Really where I found the most motivation for myself and the best application for my nascent legal skills was bringing people together to build. And this idea of building, this idea of expanding, this idea of bringing service to people who can transform their lives really was very fulfilling for me. So I found myself really attracted to ICT. I've always been a lawyer. I've always had an inquisitive mind. And the opportunity to bring these two together was really inspiring for me. So that really started my career. I joined ATN International very early in my career. I was very lucky that I was brought on as the second lawyer to the then small ATN team. And I've seen almost every legal position at ATN since that time, and I'm very honored to now serve as the general counsel and working with the fantastic ATN team members who are here and all throughout the Caribbean and US as well.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mary. So it's funny because my journey was different. I started out as a litigator and only wanted to litigate, but Cable and Wireless was paying better. So that was my journey. Beside you is Ruchi. And I remember when I met Ruchi about 7 years ago.
You left me, Rochelle. You left me.
Oh, don't say like that.
No, but I'm actually really excited that you
Yes.
left because you went on to
Yes.
wonderful
And
things.
Ruchi is a great leader. I got to serve on Ruchi's team. And I remember your introduction. You're like, you're wondering how to pronounce my name? Think Gucci with an R.
Yeah.
So Ruchi, can you tell us about your journey? Because your journey has taken you all over the world too.
Yeah, so actually when I thought back of why ICT, or how did I end up here, I actually wanted to be a baker. So that was kind of what I thought I would do as a child. And now I'm a general counsel of a communications company in the Caribbean and LATAM. So I don't even know how I got here, but I love it. How did I, I never intended to be in ICT. It just kind of happened. I went in-house. I worked for a US law firm in London, and I ended up at Virgin Media, which is a UK company, but a US kind of listed company. And I just kind of fell into it. And then I just loved it. I really, really enjoyed learning about the technology, so being inquisitive and learning. But it's not about kind of joining ICT, it's about why do I stay in ICT? Yeah, so I've now been in this kind of telecommunications world for about 20 years. And wow.
You're braver than I am to
I
admit
started
it.
when I was 10. But why I stay, there is no other industry that I think can have the impact that it does on enabling progress for a family, for a person, and for a region. So we are, I sit on our foundation. I help found the foundation, the Cable and Wireless Foundation. One of our programs that we're really keen on is the JUMP program, which you've heard about. Come see our booth. But really, it's about enabling progress in the region. And I think that's why I stay.
And we're glad you've stayed in ICT. Beside you is Carol Robertson, my good friend Carol. How are you, Carol?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. I'm feeling good.
You have had an interesting journey into ICT. Can you tell us about your journey?
Oh, you've been spying on me because I was about to say similar track, but mine is actually going to be worse because when I was growing up as a child, I wanted to be a journalist and I wanted to be an interpreter in the United Nations. That was my dream job. So, needless to say, that didn't happen. We're Caribbean people, and I know Ricardo over there will know the term skull. Does anybody know the term skull when you skull school? I didn't skull school. That means when you skip classes, basically. But I didn't skull school, but I sculled. The only class that I sculled was computer science. Was definitely not interested. I don't even think the teacher knew me. So clearly, coming up in age, that was not my goal. It was United Nations, it was languages. I love languages, I love words. But when I got to the stage in life, my first job that I was doing in a kind of professional capacity was while I was studying. And I got the opportunity to establish the office of the academic program that I was studying in. So I got to set that up, and that got me into business processes. And I didn't realize the impact of it at the time, but I had the opportunity to set up the entire program, filing systems, programs, timetables, professors, all kinds of stuff. It was really interesting. And then when I left, it just so happened that the first job I applied for and got was in IT. And I said, okay, well, maybe I should have paid attention in class. But I got that job, and in that role, I've always been, that business process exposure helped me because that job that I had in my first go-around was around implementing financial systems for accounting applications, and I got really good, that's my exposure to accounting. I implemented systems, did a lot of reporting, and then I got to get that first sense of victory when you digitize a process and your balance sheet balanced. Not just on paper, but in the system. And then I also got exposed to other business processes across different industries, and I got exposed to the victory of just having things work. And I got addicted to that. And so the rest of my journey was around that. And anybody who knows me, the other Jamaican term that I'll use is new nigger. Is anything that's new, anything that's happening for the first time, anything to try, test, I'm guinea pig number one. So I love that. So I've done that. And so over the journey, I always find myself in that innovative role, bringing new technologies, testing things out for the first time. And as Rishi said, what keeps me doing it is the victory. I just love to jump from victory to victory to victory, accomplishment to accomplishment.
Oh, thank you very much for that, Carol. So what we are hearing is that sometimes the narrative of women in ICT assumes that you do computer science. It assumes that you do engineering. Pat Walters is an accountant. Her background is finance. Lisa is legal. Your background is business processes. We have legal backgrounds here. So there is sales. There is the very big part of the customer journey. But at the end of it, it's a cacophony of backgrounds that come together to give connectivity, to join people together. And that's why it's so important. And I recall in my own journey, because when I joined Cable and Wireless in 2003, I was young. I was like 12 when I joined in 2003. And, when we talked about POTS and, all of these, because engineers always have to break things down into acronyms. And I would go into rooms that I was the only woman. And I remembered one of the things I always had in the back of my head is that any room that I'm the only woman, I'm going to be the first of many, because we're going to open the elevator. We're going to send that elevator back down and allow others in. But we also had to get a voice first to allow others in. So the question I have for you is, Mary, how have you had your voice heard in a male-dominated field? Right now, you are a very well-respected general counsel, a go-to.
Yeah, so thank you. I think it all starts with step one is visibility. So often as humans, we use our sight before we use our ears. And as you're saying, even just seeing one woman in the room, that becomes 2 women, that becomes 3 women. So just as it's important for our voice to be heard, so important is it for us to be seen as well. And so what I found is that my instinct, particularly as a young lawyer, I was building my self-confidence. I was building confidence in my own, growing skills at that time. And my instinct, as a little bit of an introvert as I am, was always to stay behind my desk, do the work, be comfortable in what I knew, and not to push myself and push boundaries. And very quickly, I had the benefit of having a mentor who pulled me out of that a little bit to say, look, you're making the right decisions behind a desk. Why can't you make the right decisions and vocalize those decisions around a meeting table as well, and not just hide it within your office? So, that lesson of first and foremost, visibility, making yourself seen, I think is the precursor to making sure that you're heard. And the way that I really found myself making myself heard was, again, to build from this well of self-confidence that I was building over time, with the help of mentors, obviously, who encouraged me to say, quite often you're right, sometimes you're not, and you can, admit when you're not. But people want to hear what you have to say, because people, well, first of all, they're paying you. You're here at this company. We want to hear your legal advice. But you can actually help build and make processes faster when you speak up, when it's not just sent over an email. You connect with people. And making those connections, drawing on your inner well of self-confidence, and continuing to build over time, I think really helps establish a personal brand and reputation that you, again, combine that visibility with creating a voice over several months, weeks of personal interaction that can help build up there too. And when I think about, how to make that sustainable, those lessons that I quickly learned, which was have confidence in yourself, take the skills that you're good at, make sure that you're very good at them, and then continue to build slowly, teaching that and making sure that sometimes you can thrust someone else into the spotlight to get that visibility, whether they're comfortable with it or not, are early lessons in a career that I think need to continue to be worked on and honed over time.
Oh, thank you for those points, Mary. And Ruchi, you sit on the Diversity Inclusion Advisory Board for Liberty Latin America. When you think of getting voices heard, how, as a member of that advisory group, what are some of the things that you have put in place or suggested to ensure that the voices of the women are heard at the table?
Yeah, so it's really interesting, because we've had a lot of discussions this year about kind of who's missing out. Yeah, who has a seat at the table, but who doesn't have a seat at the table? And how do you ensure those voices are heard? Yeah, and it's not easy. We've invested a lot, I think, in learning sessions and communication sessions, and just making sure that people have, as you said, that visibility, but people feel comfortable that they can be a part of the conversation. So, for instance, we work with the Billie Jean King Foundation. I don't know how many are tennis fans and how many are secretly watching Wimbledon in the morning, but I am. And we work with that foundation, and they've done a lot of work, even within my department, on inclusive communications. And really try, and when you say something and I say something, how do we ensure we can understand each other? And I think it's trying to get the voice of the voiceless, but also getting the voices understood. That's what's really key. And, you know, showing up, putting your hand up in those steering committees, right? LLA had a steering committee. They asked for volunteers. You put your hand up because you want your voice to be heard, but you also want other voices to be heard. So.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ruchi. So what we're hearing is that you have to show up in the space. You have to raise your hand. You have to be visible. But there is also room for where the mentor, somebody will also let you in. Somebody will say, hey, Carol, what are your thoughts on it? And I've worked with Carol for several years, and Carol raises her hand. But Carol, you've been in many rooms. You've been selling solutions for years, and you are an IT specialist. When you walk into some rooms, and you've walked into rooms that there's no seat for you at the table, they're wondering, who is this girl? How do you deal with that?
Number one, thank God for being present and listen. Just listen. That works. And I learned quite a while ago that it's never necessary for you to speak early. It's actually better for you to speak later. And if you can have the last word, no matter how small it is, but something powerful, and you speak last, that's where you get the best opportunity to have impact. And that comes once you're in that room, listen, pay attention to the perspectives in the room, and just, you know, I'm a quick study. People keep telling me that I'm a quick study, so I sum up things really fast. And I think as a result of that, I'm quite judgmental, so I will come to a conclusion really quickly. And then once I've done that, I just think about the key point that's going to resonate with everybody in the room, and I leave that. Now, I think I've been extremely privileged to work with I've had some very good leaders, bosses, direct bosses, who have, probably because of that strategy, because they would have felt heard, no matter what happens, no matter whether it's women or men or young or old, everybody wants to be heard. And if you can consistently demonstrate through your language that you have heard somebody, you get support. Yes. And I've had the opportunity to have really good support. I can single out in my current dispensation, Stephen Price, who has, you know, given me the opportunity to do things because I guess I've earned that trust. And I think listening and responding in that impactful way will also earn you trust. But then that's followed up with successful execution. So those victories that I go after, they help to bring you back in the room. So once you're in there the first time, you get brought in. Now, I find myself in a situation where I'm called in many rooms for many things, and I absolutely love it. Sometimes I go in the room and I don't feel the need to speak in that forum, because you don't have to say something all the time. Sometimes it's better to say nothing than to say the wrong thing. But I've had the opportunity to participate in a lot of conversations that are really on the periphery of what I do, but I do feel that my opinion is valued. And so that's it. It's the trust, it's a demonstration, and the key thing right away is the listening and responding with him.
Yes.
And can I just add something to that?
Sure.
So there's different speaking styles.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, and Carol comes across passionate, confident. Look, there's a lot of women out there who don't feel confident. They don't have that comfort. It could also be cultural. We don't know kind of what kind of family environment where they encourage to speak up. So what I can say is that what I look to kind of the audience to support is if there's somebody in the room where they've landed a comment and you can see it's a good comment, but it's gone a bit flat, support that comment. Say, absolutely. Hey, Mary, that was a great comment. And then just amplify it. And I think if we can do more of that, I think that will build that person's confidence, but also maybe that's what you need for the message to be heard. Yes. So I'd encourage that.
That's a great, great comment. Thank you for that, Ruchi. And it follows on from what Carol is saying. You actually need to be present in the room and paying attention, because when you have the voice that you know somebody's made a point or they're trying to make a point, and you can help them along, and it helps all of us. So Ruchi, since you had jumped in, let me jump to you to ask you this question, because we're going to talk about all kind of things here. We're going to talk up the things. It's a Rochelle show. Telecoms, ICT, very fast-paced technology. Are women allowed to have children and still thrive in their careers?
I hope so. I have two.
Can we talk about that?
No, I have two. Are they allowed to thrive?
Yes.
Can they, or do we have enough space to thrive? Look, I think it's the same question for men and women generally, but women are, most predominantly the caregivers at home as well. Although I'm very lucky that my husband does the predominant caregiving, which is why I'm allowed to travel and to go to all these places. I think so. I think ICT is very supportive. It's like any other industry. And I think ICT is evolving as well. And with COVID, that was a great lesson in changing kind of how we work. And so all of a sudden, I was able to work from home. I think I developed a much closer connection with my kids because I was home. Fine, I was in a room in the corner and I came out for snacks on occasion, but I still got to see them. I still got to hug them in the middle of the day. I didn't have to travel as much. So I definitely think you can be a parent and work in ICT and have a really great relationship with your kids. And guess what? What fuels the connectivity for me to talk to my kids at night? Exactly. It's this phone and it's the internet. So it's a very important function that we have in society in keeping families connected.
So the work that we do is also helping us to ensure that there is that connectivity.
Absolutely.
A friend of mine was telling me recently that she heard her daughter on a Zoom call. Apparently she was leading a meeting, and she's like, the meeting is now called to order. And she's like, may I have the minutes read? So having heard her mother in all of these board meetings, she's now a chairperson herself. So Mary, over to you, because I know you do have some thoughts on this juxtaposition of parenting and what we can do to empower our women to be able to traverse their best lives in parenting, but also that we want to go after those careers too.
That's
and
right.
How do we empower other women, and how have you been empowered?
I thank you very much. And, in thinking about your comments, Ruchi, I thought, COVID is actually a fantastic example because not for everyone, but for me, it was a scary time. It was a very scary time, a time of uncertainty. Certainly in my lifetime, I had never lived through a pandemic. I'm a mother as well. And I was scared for myself. I was scared for my children. I was scared for my coworkers too, about how to squeeze in their time to care for their families, how to make sure when we were on our feet trying to think of policies to make sure that our workforce was safe, even though they had to be out we were getting emergency passes, they had to be out, they had to be communicating with customers, they had to be going into homes or public spaces when we were on lockdown or in quarantine. And all of this was a stressful time, but made me so grateful to be working in an environment where people really made space in the workplace for humanity. And I think whether we're thinking about women or we're thinking about men in the workforce, we first think about they're humans and they're people that build our company to be better. And if we don't make space for that humanity, it's going to be very difficult to serve our customers in a meaningful way. And so when I think about having children, having hobbies, having anything other than a career, I think that is so vital and so healthy, so that when you do come and try and advance your career, you bring with yourself a diversity of experience, you bring diversity of perspectives, and that in itself you can translate to your customers to help understand why they need certain services, why connectivity is working in some way and not in others. And so what I've always tried to do is approach my career and building my team with a gratitude mindset. And a lot of that gratitude has been built by the people who created opportunities for me. I'm endlessly grateful for the people early in my career and even to this day who continue to give me the space to be a mother, to have a career. I'm endlessly grateful to my husband, who is home with my kids right now in Boston, so that I can be in Miami. And I think, how can I create that same environment of gratitude to take the very talented people who I'm very lucky to have on my team and help them grow their talent in a way that is as fulfilling for them as it was for me early in my career.
Thank you for that, Mary. And as we're on this discussion of leadership, Carol, I was on a panel interviewing some amazing young people, and one of the candidates, when we were going through her interview, she said, "Stop! I have a few questions for you." She had just graduated from university, Gen Z, and she's like, I need to understand your work hours, that it's 8 to 5. She says, I don't really come alive until 10, and I'll do 10 to 7. So she's like, I play tennis in the morning, so I just want to know, is the 8 written in stone? And I thought to myself, the bravado of the new generation, and these are the children we've raised them to have a voice. So now we're working with the several generations in the workplace. We're working with a more educated workforce. Things would have changed from when we started on our leadership journey. How has your leadership evolved with everything that's going on? Communication has changed, everything.
Well, it's a big question. I want to start answering it just by pivoting from the previous question. As IT people, our world is, and I use the word loosely, right? Structured. All right? So when you're doing innovation, it's not so structured. You're really, if you're leading the way, you're flying the airplane while you build it some of the time. But we're basically a structured mindset. And in the day, so I left the age conversation when it was happening on the left, but I'm going to drop it in now. So almost 40 years ago when I started my career in IT, I've done the journey. My daughter is now 33, but my daughter has a disability, so she's deaf. Now, in terms of are we allowed to parent, when she would have been going through high school and left high school with aspirations, so doing the same thing, seeing mom on the, doing her thing and working these hours, we are creating work ethic in them, even just by doing what we're doing. A lot of deaf people resign themselves to the fact that they don't have careers. And that's another story. And you want to talk to me about deafness and those things, let's have a chat outside, because I'll go for days. But my daughter has aspirations, and she chose fashion design as her career. So when she finished high school, she wanted to go to Edna Manley School of the Visual Arts. But the program that she wanted to do was only available for 2 years in the evening. There were no sign language interpreters. I'm a certified sign language interpreter. That happened later. But the challenge became, how does she go to a hearing environment to learn a discipline like fashion design? And the only option was, Mom. So I went through 2 years of doing the days that you are accustomed to, then leaving the office, driving home in Kingston traffic, to pick her up, to drive across Kingston again to get to Edna Manley, and interpreting... interpreting an average of 3 courses every night, to get home at 10 o'clock, to help her with her assignments. Luckily, she's nocturnal, so she will stay up all night. And then, we never get the stuff done 9 to 5, so we then have to go back and finish. And so, and then she wasn't well either. She was now we know all of her allergies, but at the time we didn't know the vast allergies that so going to bed for her at 1 o'clock and being up 3 o'clock in the morning sick, and then now me attending to her, and then 6 o'clock in the morning you're doing the same thing. But the point I'm making is that I did that for 2 years, just while she was at Edna Manley, and then there was everything after that. And so for us as women, I always hate saying those words, for us as women, because it kind of pushes the men aside, and that's not my intention, but there is a lot going on with us. And nobody in my office would know what my days were like. Nobody. I think I have more bags under my eyes now than I had then, so it's retrospect. But just to say that there's a responsibility that we take as mothers to get our children where they want to be. Now, coming to the current generation, who knows everything about everything all of the time, and want to tell us how to live our lives, yeah, it's different. They're not, the 9-to-5 concept is just unfathomable for them. What are you all doing, and why do you do that? And yes, I'd like to get up at 10, and I'd like to go to the gym first, meet my friends at the cafe. I've had many conversations with youngsters about their preferred day in the life of, and that's really what they want to do. And one of the things that we are challenged with also as women is in IT, we feel creativity, I believe, in the jobs that we do every day. But our kids don't necessarily see it, because what they're seeing is us laboriously going through the computer, and it's like, I don't want that life. But we get satisfaction from that. But they don't want to do that. They want to do what they consider to be creative. And because of who we are and our nurturing spirit, we actually worry about it rather than accept it. And so I think our attitude has to be a kind of guided acceptance, because at the end of the day, no matter how much our children think they know, they haven't done it yet, all right? It might be a different dispensation, but life is kind of more or less the same.
Yes.
And so they still need our guidance. But at the same time, we need to take a step back too and understand that things are a bit different from when we were coming up the chain. Yeah. And so we have to give them their space. We have to accommodate the conversation, but we have to guide it. And as we've been saying, we need to allow the conversation to take place, and we need to do a lot of listening without that little judgmental piece that I carry with me everywhere, but, you know, to give them the latitude to be who they're going to be.
So we have to give latitude. So Ruchi, in your leadership, when you think of even giving that latitude, the contracts need to be delivered, you need to send that document out to the regulator, and you have team members who say, they're triggered. They're having a mental health issue that day. They need a mental health day. And we do come from the generation, and I tell people all the time, I came from the generation that you took 2 Panadol, you took 2 painkillers, and you came to work regardless. How have you had to?
Times have changed, Michelle. Okay, times have changed. And I think, you know, going back, I think it was COVID, right? I think we were, we talked about the anxiety and the fear. I mean, it brought out the real mental health struggles. And the thing is, you were talking to your teams every day, and you became vulnerable with each other. You became really trusting. You shared, like, there were moments where people were crying on the phone, the daily check-ins with people while going for a walk because you needed a break. Like, it was, what I think we learned, the importance of both physical wellness and mental well-being. And when I was at a law firm, like back in the 90s, late 2000s, you worked all night at least once a week. They paid you for your weekends. You showed up, you spent all night, like you just worked. That doesn't exist. So if the team says, hey, I need a mental health day, you take a day, the contracts will happen. Yeah. There are other team members to support. The concept of in this together definitely exists. And I think there was that, because we collectively went through this very difficult period, I think we were just all more open with each other and trusting and vulnerable, which is absolutely key. Yeah, I'm much more vulnerable. When I need a day, I'm like, I need a day. Yes. I actually said it to our CEO of LLA on Friday. I said, my family is this crystal ball. He talks about a crystal ball. I said, it's a crystal ball day. I need to spend time with my husband. Yes. And I missed a meeting, and he was totally okay with it. Yeah. So you have to be open on the why. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think it goes so much to what you're saying, Carol. So you have to be open, and you have to guide. You know, the things that you shared with us and what you were going through at that time in your career, at that time as a mother, that was not okay for you to be going through that alone. You know, for you to have the support within your team to be able to help you through that time, you know, I would love to be able to continue to pass that on, while at the same time, of course, we're setting priorities for our business, of course we're setting priorities for our customer, but it's not sustainable to be grinding through that. You know, you need to be able to rely on a team support and a community support. Yeah. And, you know, it's amazing with Carol, because Carol always showed up with a smile,
with her confidence no matter what is going on. But now I think we are allowed to be more vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know, it's allowed for us to be more vulnerable. And when we think of even what we're doing in the digital space, Mary, how has digital empowerment helped us? And how is that the digital empowerment we have now for women helping to push this sustainable digital economy?
Yeah, I think about it, I go back to visibility. When you have women in ICT, you need to have visibility for anyone within any career. And so, you know, I think back to pre-COVID, you know, a lot of women would find themselves having a burgeoning career, not being able to make space for the family or hobbies or other things that they wanted within the confines of this 9 to 5, in office all the time, workforce. And I think that just as COVID really transformed the way that we work from the office and gave people the flexibility to be able to check in with their kids over lunch, to be able to check in with their family, to go to the gym for their mental and physical well-being, all of that was so necessary. But I also think that with the explosion of the digital economy, it's really helped women, especially who had developed community support through things like crafts, through finding independent and artistic outlets for their creation, who are very capable about making you know, accessible and intriguing art. And when I think about items like Etsy that has been really proliferated, you know, the at-home artists to be able to share their gifts with the world, they can now set their own time frame. That maybe it's because they want to play tennis from 8 to 10 in the morning. Maybe it's because, for all we know, they're driving their child to a class that they need to be at. You know, we don't know the reasons that people need to make the hours their own, but I think one of the fantastic things about how our digital economy grows is it allows people to have that flexibility. And the more flexible you are, the more visible people will have, and those opportunities remain rather than being pushed to the side. And I think that becomes sustainable because the very definition of sustainability is being able to create and recreate over and over again. And if you're in a situation where you're at a law firm working until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning every night, where you're only getting 4 or 5 nights sleep, that's not sustainable. You know, you cannot, you just physically can't sustain that level of work. But if you're able to tailor it to a flexible work arrangement, if you're able to showcase your talents from the hours of 8 to 10, with maybe then, you know, 5 to 7, if you have a digital economy that can help you actually monetize your talents and your artistic endeavors, then you find little niches for people to be able to continue to sustain a bit of a career, a bit of a family, a bit of community engagement. And I think that overall promotes both mental well-being and then overall sustainability of the economy.
So
Thank
what
you.
we're saying is the moral of the story for the policymakers: keep the flexibility alive. Right?
Flexibility.
Absolutely.
It's really important for families, it's really important for parents to just have that type of flexibility. So whether it's the hybrid work policies or flexible timing, all of that is helpful.
I think about it as a benefit for policymakers, because without that flexibility, you're taking an entire swath of talent off the table.
Yes.
Why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want to be able to have your pick of the best and brightest? And if that means guiding them to revised work hours, you know, being able to take a crystal ball day from time to time, isn't it absolutely worth it so that you have the brightest and most innovative talent available to you and your team?
And not just availability, but also quality. Because everybody's different. Your strong parts of the days are going to be different, your strongest hours, as you're saying. And you want people to be able to identify that within themselves and choose the hour that makes them the best person that they can.
Yeah. And this also puts women in a position that there is more economic empowerment, because they are still able to be able to build businesses, work in organizations, and we know that there is a correlation with economic independence, economic empowerment, and things like gender-based violence. And Ruchi, I know you have some very strong views, as do I, as do all of us, on gender-based violence. And can you share with us some of the projects you're working on?
Yeah, so I think for those of you who were here yesterday, Carrie mentioned it. Kind of a few years ago, we lost 2 of our team members to gender-based violence. one in Puerto Rico and one in the Caribbean markets. And it was a real shock for us. And so what have we done as LLA is we're really trying to push the discussion out into the open. Yeah, because it's very, very hidden. I was shocked with the stat of 1/3 of females will experience gender-based violence in their lifetime, like that in the Caribbean. That's shocking, shocking to me. So what are we doing about it, right? That's key. So we put a policy in place at LLA where if you, we have a outside kind of mental health employee resource assistance program for people to talk to. But if you are facing gender-based violence, we put a policy in place that we will move you. Yeah, we will move you out of the situation. We will help you. It could be that we will move you to another island and set you up. We will do everything that you need to support you during this time. So, so we have policies like that. We have policies like hybrid work policies, unlimited PTO to kind of create that flexibility. But it's a real, I'm very proud of our organization and what we've done to really support women, women and men actually in our countries. We have a paid parental leave for men and women. We give men 8 weeks of parental leave. We give women 16 weeks. I wish it was equal, because for me, until you have equality in the home, you won't have equality in the workplace. But these are things that we're doing to really shift the narrative. In fact, I heard the Jamaican government also they adapted our parental leave policy for the men in the public workforce. So that's great.
Because a good part of this discussion is that we are aware that a lot of the policies we've put in place for women, some of these things have not been put in place for men. So they are almost feeling a little left behind now too.
Changing the narrative.
Yes, it's changing narrative. So I remember when I was a prosecutor, there was a gentleman just hanging around the courthouse every day, and one day he stopped to ask if he could speak to me because I was the Crown Counsel, and he was being beaten by his wife. Yeah, he was, but he had so much shame in going to the police about it, and he just wasn't sure what to do. So now we are opening the conversation about equity, and equity is equity for all, diversity, equality, that everybody has an opportunity to be at the table. And this is one of the reasons too why the Women in ICT Committee has been even further revitalized. Carol is chair. Can you tell us a little bit about the work of the WICT committee, Carol?
Yes, it would be my pleasure. Okay, I have had the privilege of chairing this subcommittee for just a couple months, but I've been able to engage with a wonderful subset of the women of CANTO, and that has been great. We've had some great conversations. And my approach to leading this subcommittee started with what we've been talking about, just collaboration, just like conversation and hearing and listening and what's been going on. And I love the topic about changing the narrative, because in our committee, we decided that we would re-examine what we were trying to accomplish as a subcommittee. And we would have started with the typical conversations around equity and diversity, and then we go into, drill down into salary scales and promotion and how many persons are in leadership and all of those statistical-based things. And they continue to be important, but as everyone knows, the good news is that women are doing much better, more women leaders in our organization. The ratios continue to, rise. And then we are having our voices heard, obviously, and women are showing up in a lot more places along the technology curve, being responsible. Our own disaster recovery for CANTO and our CWC is a female. Mm-hmm. And she should have been here, but she's not, because she's managing our efforts around the Caribbean. Huge responsibility. So we're seeing that things are there, and I put back that trust word. Women are being trusted with these huge portfolios of responsibility. So from the subcommittee perspective, we decided that we needed to add to that the issue of support. Much of the things we've been talking about, how do you really have a conversation when there are men in the room? It is a fact. And even with me today, you will see a group of men that you are working with, having a conversation, and it's quite possible that conversation, the topic could be something that I'm involved in, but I'm not going over there. because it could also be a body conversation. And so we still have that kind of reservation. So what are the skills? How do we insert ourselves, or how do we continue to create our forums to have the conversation? Because maybe I don't want to join it, but you know, how do we create our forums to keep our projects and our initiatives moving forward, and also build relationships? Remember that book? Is it Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus? Yes. It really is. I don't know the details of the analogies there, but the reality is men think differently to women, and never the twain shall meet. What we need to learn is how to understand and appreciate how men think, and men appreciate how women think. So these are some of the things that we can explore together as a group, because there are men in the Women in ICT committee as well. So thank you, guys. And if any other male is interested in joining us, please do, because it's all about perspective. So support. Sharing the skill sets around those forums, how to get over the timidity around, you know, being around men, how to understand the room, and how to learn the language of men. Yeah, there's a nice little study out there on it, and I want us to go through that. We've decided to create a kind of a hotline. Sometimes when you have that deadline that you need to achieve, or you need to finish that project, and you need that oomph from somebody who's going to understand, or you need to start a PowerPoint deck and you want to know what, forget ChatGPT, all right? But how am I going to start my thought process, or can I bounce my ideas off you in a safe space? Yes. We've created some of the women in the conference will have been added to this WhatsApp chat, so look out for it. And what we want to do there is give you an opportunity to just say, hey, can someone talk to me for 5 minutes? My son is driving me crazy. My daughter is driving me nuts. I'm tired, I need to, whatever it is, it really doesn't matter, but you have a point that you can go to just say, can I have a talk with somebody? So we put that in place. We also created a forum that we call Women with ICT. Did I tell you that I like words? Women with ICT. So that's the concept of iced tea. So we're creating this forum where we can sit down over some iced tea and have a chat, just that time to breather. There is a perception that the men have the opportunities to stop for a beer on the way home. We know that's not true, but there's that perception. So they have an outlet. So we're creating an outlet for the women, you know. So once a month, perhaps we'll do women with ICT. Doesn't mean you have to drink iced tea, but whatever you want to relax with.
Okay, because I was saying we could do women with Prosecco too.
Yeah, Prosecco works. Whatever tickles your fancy, you can bring that along. But the idea is just a little downtime so that we can do the fellowship and the hanging out. We're going to continue with implementing a mentorship program. And we have acknowledged that for the mentorship program, we need to have that commitment, not just to engage with somebody, but to be interested in furthering that person and be invested in that. And so we've done the framework for that, and we're about to implement that. And I think those are the major things that we're capturing for the rest of 2024, awesome. And then the list goes on in 25. We will also continue to seek out persons to highlight in the CANTO magazine, the Cancion magazine, and also on the website. So if you see a lot of projects are happening, please send us the information where women are leading and having great impact and achieving, and we want to highlight those.
Okay, awesome.
That's the start.
Thank you for that, Carol. So as we are having this conversation, changing narrative, and as we wrap up, I'm just going to ask each of you, when we've talked about collaboration, we've talked about mentorship, visibility, resetting the cycle. The CANTO 15 years ago, when I just came to CANTO, the look of CANTO has changed significantly. We are seeing ourselves on stage. We are seeing ourselves in the Cancion. The conversation has evolved, but we can't get comfortable with the conversation evolving. There's still more work to be done. So as we change the narrative, and I'll just add to, Carol, you said that sometimes, you know, what are the conversations we can have? And funny enough, I sent to one of my friend groups, I said, we're going to host a women in ICT panel just now. I'm so excited. And one of them was like, make sure you talk about things like menopause. Yeah. Because Carol is like, yeah.
And I absolutely agree. So we talked about the children a while ago, but what we didn't speak about, which I'm so glad you said that, when we're talking about how long we've been in the career, the other thing that happens is parents. Our parents start aging, and their needs are changing. And so you find that you now have an additional thing to think. So yeah, the menopause is one, and it's real. But also now you have the dynamics in the family. So
in the family. So as women, the narrative is changing for us, even when we're not participating. So when we are able to curate the narrative ourselves, change the narrative for ourselves, Mary, what are some of the things you're seeing yourself doing that you're going to encourage the other women in here to be doing over the next couple of years?
Well, I think, and it just deserves to be said out loud, we need to talk about it, whatever it may be. Maybe it's children, maybe it's a loved one with a disability, maybe it's aging parents, maybe it's menopause, maybe it's a healthcare concern, maybe it's mental health. Whatever it is, it should not be a taboo topic, because we have found that we're stronger within the workplace when we can support each other, but we can't support each other adequately unless we're trying to understand each other and helping each other succeed. So getting to that path of helping to get that person more visibility, helping to further their career, you have to understand what that person is dealing with and what they might be doing with, and talk about what your own struggles are. And when I think again about unlocking, just as you were thinking about in preparation for this, the men are from Mars and women are from Venus, I thought a lot about a book that I actually gave to my daughter, who's 11. It's called The Confidence Code for Girls. And unlocking this confidence code is there's a real gap between men overestimate their skills and ability, and women consistently underestimate both.
Absolutely.
And there are a lot of statistics about how women won't apply for a job unless they have already succeeded in 100% of the elements. And men will do so if they've succeeded in about 60%. And I want to steal from the men for a little bit, because I think pushing ourselves and having that innate confidence is something that is really difficult to do. And one of the things that I would like to encourage my team and encourage everyone here to do is, regardless of where you are in your career, when you're working with someone, if you are a mentor or even if you're a mentee, don't be afraid of making mistakes, because seeing someone who is experienced make a mistake and dealing with that mistake with grace and efficiency is going to help the next person build confidence, because confidence doesn't come from being perfect and never making mistakes. And if you hold yourself to an unrealistic standard, which many girls do, then you're never going to surpass that. So I think it's those two things: having the openness and willingness to acknowledge whatever may be going on in your life, and two, embracing mistakes, but embracing them in a way that can be a catalyst for change, I think is really, really important to demonstrate to get over that confidence gap.
Thank you very much, Mary. Give Mary a round of applause for that.
Thank you.
Ruchi, over to you.
Well, that was wonderful, Mary. But actually, going further to Carol, was that I remember. Okay, so I'm a bit of a fan of J-Lo. Let's just say, let's be honest. But she has twins, and she sees it with her son and her daughter, and I see it with my son and daughter as well. Women think too much, and men don't think enough. That's the summary of what she said with her twins, and I see it all the time. And there are moments where I'm really questioning, what should I do? Should I do that? Should I go to that event? Should I do this? And my husband goes, what would a man do in this situation?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Very clear. And so there's sometimes you have to get outside of your own self deprecation. But I think that's really important, is to understand each other. But look, there's a statement that somebody made that I think is really, really key. Diversity is a fact, but inclusion is a choice. Right? And I just would call upon all our allies, male and female, to really focus on inclusion. Focus on who's not there, focusing on empowering the people who are there, and really making sure everybody's voice is heard, because together that will really help kind of make ICT thrive and our industry even better.
Oh, thank you for that, Ruchi. Please, a round of applause for Ruchi. Thank you for that. So Carol, chair of the Women in ICT Committee, we will give you the last word.
Thank you. I think I'll echo it's great words, great sentiments shared. The communication to share, be vulnerable. It's necessary now. It's a different world. On that note, the one thing I did forget to share is that we have also launched a survey from the Women in ICT Committee, so everybody will get that. And that's also seeking to understand not just the statistics, but what your needs are to inform us of the things that we're going to do going forward. So so respond to that so we can hear. Let's continue to share. Let's create the forums to share. And then ICT is also a high-pressure area. On your best day, and some of us, like me, sometimes when it's quiet, I'm like, what's wrong? Something is wrong here. I need something to be happening. But we live in that high-pressure area. But when we're under pressure, we tend to internalize, and we tend to retreat, and we focus here. Those are the times when you need to look out and look at the people around you, whether they be male or female, because we all have the same needs. We want to belong, number one. I said it yesterday, I think. And see how we can help others, because the more we help others, the more we let go of the stress within ourselves, and then we will get that actualization from just helping to build up people. So I think we should do that. And then the last thing that I would say here is, again, whenever we're having the women conversation, it kind of, pushes the men to one side. But I would also encourage the men in the room and outside of the room, whether you're to be married or father, once you have women around you, share these messages with them and give them that. I know you will endorse them and give them that positive reassurance, but start having the conversations with them around these topics so that it's not foreign to them. And one more thing, a mentor that I had really early on told me that a team or a management team that gets along is not a powerful team. If you have disagreement, and remember the word, it's disagreement, it's not necessarily quarrels or fights, it's disagreement. You're going to be stronger because after you come out of that conversation, you will come to a better place with all perspectives considered. One of the things that we do in terms of shying away from these conversations is we see that play out and we don't want to be a part of it. We should be a part of it because our voice needs to be heard.
Thank you, Carol. Our voice needs to be heard. We need to improve on our confidence, visibility. We need to ensure that all the voices are in the room, because that's how we'll be able to have disruption, disagreement, because we'll have all of the opinions in the room. And as women in ICT, we get a unique opportunity to be right at the helm of connecting seamlessly this beautiful Caribbean region, empowering our women, empowering our men, empowering our nations. Please give these ladies a round of applause for this panel. Carol Robertson, Senior Business Development Partner and Caribbean Government Lead C&W Business and Chairman of Women in ICT. Mary Maybe, General Counsel, ATN International. And Rushi Kaushal, General Counsel, Cable and Wireless Communications, as well as Cable and Wireless Lead on Women Initiatives, Diversity Initiatives. Ladies, thank you very much. And as we wrap up this afternoon, again, if I were Oprah, I would say, a car for you, a car for you, a car for you, and a car for you, Aisha. But I'm not. So applause for you, applause for you, applause for you, applause for you. We've made it through day 2. You've been an awesome audience. We will be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for day 3 of CANTO. Thank you to all our presenters today. Thank you to our final panelists. And please enjoy the rest of your evening. See you tomorrow.